Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Adam Burke from BangTheBook.com with our Wednesday weekend look-ahead video, Week 17 in the NFL, and also getting to the point in the College Football Bowl season where a lot of the better teams are playing and a lot of the better matchups are coming your way. Over at BangTheBook.com, we've previewed every College Football Bowl game. There have been some changes, obviously, with players sitting out and things of that sort, so definitely want to make sure that you're doing the research to double-check on those types of things. But we got a lot of good stats, trends, and betting information for all of the remaining bowl games over at BangTheBook.com. Also, the NHL returns tomorrow, which means Parker Michaels returns tomorrow with his NHL picks. Doing a fantastic job here this season, both with sharing information and picking winners. So definitely want to make sure you're checking out Parker's piece each and every day over there at BangTheBook.com. So far this week, we've had 2 editions of Bang the Book Radio. On Sunday afternoon, I recorded with Kyle Hunter for our Monday show. On Wednesday, had Brian Leonard and Wes Reynolds. Tomorrow, we'll have Brad Powers and Tony George. And then Friday, Week 17 Super Contest segment, and Brent from DSI Sportsbook with this week's version of the Odds Report. So make sure you keep it tuned to Bang the Book Radio. Lots of good things coming your way here the rest of the week. And if you've missed anything here over the holiday season, please go back and check it out. All right, let's take a look here at the weekend in our Wednesday weekend look-ahead video. We've got, as I mentioned, some good bowl games coming up here this weekend. Of course, you've got Syracuse and West Virginia coming up on Friday. Unfortunately, that game's lost some of its luster with Will Grier sitting out and some of the other players that will be skipping that one. But Iowa State, Washington State, very interesting game in the Alamo Bowl on Friday night. And then Saturday, of course, we've got 5 bowl games. You've got Michigan and Florida, South Carolina and Virginia in the Belk Bowl, and then the 2 semifinal games for the College Football Playoff. As I take a peek over at the odds screen here, Alabama still a 14-point favorite in that game here against Oklahoma. Looking at a total on this one down into the 76 range. So a lot of sharp money coming in on the under for this one. A lot of prep time for both of these teams, obviously. Tua Tagovailoa says he's about 80 to 85%, so he should be good to go there for that one. But total definitely coming down on that game. We'll see public money come back in on the over for that one, but a very distinct sharp side here on the under for the first of the 2 semifinal games. In the second semifinal, you've got Notre Dame and Clemson. Clemson without Dexter Lawrence and a couple of other players for testing positive for a banned substance. But Clemson, very, very good with Trevor Lawrence at quarterback, Travis Etienne, and the running backs doing a fantastic job this year. Clemson, top 5 in yards per play, top 5 in yards per play allowed. Very dominant team. Statistical profile suggests that Clemson should be in good shape against pretty much everybody in the country not named Alabama, and they're expected to be in good shape here in this game. Spread on this one in the 12.5 range right now, up a little bit from the opening number of 11. Brandon Wimbush expected to transfer from Notre Dame, so if something happens to Ian Book in this game, then what happens for the Fighting Irish? Hopefully we don't have to find out, but it'll be an interesting one to see where the sharp money comes in on this game. Haven't seen too much movement in this line as of yet. My guess is we may see a little bit of sharp money on Notre Dame, but a very clear coaching advantage, at least from a head coach standpoint, for Clemson coming up there in that College Football Playoff Semifinal. No bowl games on Sunday, whole bunch of them on Monday. Maybe I'll touch on those in that Monday mashup video, at least for some of the later games that are coming up here on the last day of 2018. We transition over to the NFL side here in the Wednesday weekend look ahead. Week 17. Lots of landmines out there for you this week in the betting market. You have to make sure that you're separating the noise from what really matters in these games. Lots of playoff scenarios. Could be a lot of good in-game betting opportunities. Teams will be scoreboard watching. Somebody will be paying attention to what's going on with the teams that directly impact them. So maybe you get a situation at halftime, somebody's blowing somebody out, other team gets wind of it, not really much motivation for them in the second half, may wind up sitting some guys, things of that sort. So live betting, probably going to be your best friend here in Week 17. I'll hit on a few of these games, trying to keep these videos to around 10 minutes or so, both for editing purposes and also for viewing purposes here. But Dallas and the Giants, the one right at the top of the board here, game 301, 302. Giants a 6.5 point favorite over the Cowboys. Obviously, this line suggests that the Cowboys are going to sit everybody of consequence this week. Make sure you pay attention to what the coaches are saying. Some of these games will be like preseason games where The starters will play a couple series, maybe the first quarter, just to stay sharp, and then the backups will play the rest of the game. Pay attention to what these coaches are saying. Could be some very good derivative betting opportunities. First quarter, first half, things of that sort. Maybe Dallas decides, hey, you know what? We're going to play Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott for the first quarter. If that's the case, well, you've got Giants -6. So the Giants should be favored in the first quarter based on the full game line. Maybe Dallas surprises, plays some guys in the first quarter, something like that. Again, maybe that's not the right situation to talk about with a derivative bet like that. Maybe Dallas absolutely positively will sit everybody. But there will be some teams. Take Houston, for example. New England is a 2-touchdown favorite essentially against the New York Jets. Very, very likely to win that game. For Houston, not a whole lot of incentive in the second half possibly if they get out to a nice lead against Jacksonville to play everybody there in the second half. So maybe they sit some guys in the second half. Maybe Jacksonville makes it close. Something like that. It does help the Texans' motivation level this week that if they lose, the winner of the Titans and Colts game winds up winning the AFC South. So the Texans do have to be invested, and yet seeing money hit the board on Jacksonville here, down from a 9-point dog to a 7.5-point dog, and actually a 6.5-point dog as I look at the updated odds here. So lots of Jacksonville money coming on the board for this week's game, even though Houston still has plenty to play for in terms of wanting that home game in the wild card weekend. So these are all very important considerations. Makes it very tough for Week 17 of the NFL. I would recommend treading lightly, even in games where it seems like it matters to both teams. One of them being Game 315-316 here, the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, the Ravens have plenty on the line. They need to win the AFC North to get into the playoffs. The Browns can finish with a winning record for the first time since 2002 and potentially keep Baltimore out of the playoffs. Of course, if Baltimore doesn't get in, Pittsburgh gets in. But for the Browns here, they're not worried about any of the extraneous stuff in this game. They're only worried about how they look. Obviously going 8-7-1 maybe increases the chances of Greg Williams staying around. They seem to like playing for him. Freddie Kitchens is supposedly signed, sealed, and delivered for next year as the offensive coordinator, but a win here could go a long way. So yeah, Baltimore is very invested, but so is Cleveland in this game. And this line of 6.5, 5.5, in the 5.5 to 6.5 range, I should say, this is a game that I think a lot of people are going to look at and say, well, I like Cleveland in this spot. But also, this line is high for a reason. So you have to keep that in mind too, where both of these teams are invested, but still, you have to think that Baltimore going for the playoffs should have a little bit more on the line. But for Cleveland, look at what they're building. Look at what they're trying to build here with this season. So I think it's going to be a very interesting game to see where the percentages and the consensus comes down. You look at a game where it doesn't really matter for either team. Miami and Buffalo, for example, game 319-320. Buffalo 3.5-point favorite. Dolphins, not a lot of incentive to go up to Western New York and play in the cold and in the gray and the dreariness of Buffalo and all the other Great Lakes cities at this time of the year. But the number's only 3.5. Open 3, 3.5. We haven't even hit 4 yet, which is very telling for you out there in the marketplace to know that this is a spot where Miami recently eliminated from the playoffs. Buffalo, lots of injuries on the offensive side of the ball. But still, we're only sitting at 3.5 here. And that's not to say that I like Buffalo in this game or that I like Miami in this game. Just to say that you want to look for these context clues in the betting market when you get to Week 17 of the NFL. Another game on the board that doesn't really matter for either team here, 317-318 Atlanta and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay bet into a home favorite here with a lame duck coaching staff. But notice the total. The total going up a few points here throughout the week early on will be a publicly bet overplay as well. Teams that have nothing to play for generally let it all hang out. We saw that last week with the Jets and the Packers. Should see that again here with the Falcons and Buccaneers. I would fully expect this game to have a total that continues to rise before we get to kickoff here. Maybe we see some sharp guys buy back on the under. Maybe we see some middle opportunities, something like that. But when you've got two teams that aren't playing for anything, a lot of times you see that total go up and you see a high-scoring type of game. So that'll be something to keep in mind for that one. A couple of other games to touch on really quickly here. Chicago and Minnesota. You got Minnesota in this game, a 4.5-point favorite. Do the Bears need this game? No, not necessarily, but they can handpick their opponent for the wild card round. Do they want to play Minnesota? Well, if the Vikings win, that's who they'll get. Would they rather play somebody else? Would they rather play the Eagles? Well, maybe they go out there with a max effort against the Vikings here this weekend. So again, another consideration for you. So the biggest thing that I would say, even with a game like the Chargers and the Broncos, Chargers need a win and a Kansas City loss to win the division. Would certainly like to get some momentum going here after playing very poorly last week. Denver looks dead in the water, but again, tough place to go and win in the altitude. That line's 6.5. Keep in mind, going from 4 to 6, not that hard to do. Going from 4 to 7, a little bit tougher to do, and we haven't seen that move up to 7 yet. So very important to pay attention to context clues in the betting markets here this week. And as I mentioned, listen to what the coaches have to say, because they'll tell you what's going on, and some of these games may set up like the NFL preseason. We'll try to sort through it all for you on Bang the Book Radio the rest of the week and also at BangTheBook.com. Thank you so much for checking out this Wednesday weekend look ahead. I'm Adam Burke from BangTheBook.com.